Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X research and professional physicist. And today I'd like to bring to you another one of my articles. This one is entitled Hurricane Florence, Cover-Up for Tidal Force from Object in Outer Space. Now, Hurricane Florence started impacting the east coast of the United States on Thursday, September 13, 2018. I'm writing this article on September 14th, a day later. For many days before the hurricane hit the coastline, there were many dire warnings about the strength of this hurricane. On Monday afternoon, September 10th, and thus 3 days before the hurricane reaching the coastline, it was predicted that it would reach the coastline as a Category 3 hurricane. However, just before it did reach the coastline, Florence was categorized as a Category 1 hurricane. And here you see in the diagram how Florence was predicted to be a Category 3 hurricane on Monday 10th when it reached shore. Then, as you can see, on September 14th, as we can see, it reached the shore as a Category 1. Now, with hurricane category predictions come rainfall predictions as well as storm surge predictions. Storm surge refers to the predicted height of the water coming onshore from the ocean. This is attributed to the wave heights brought on by the wind generated by the hurricane. The forecast below, as you can see, this one here is from September 11th, so that's 2 days before the hurricane reached shore, when it was still believed that the hurricane would come on shore as a Category 3 hurricane. And you can see from here that Myrtle Beach here is in green, so that means a predicted storm surge of 4 to 6 feet. Here, Wilmington is blue, so that would be 6 to 8, with some areas 8 to 10 feet of the sea rising. That's what they call the storm surge. However, this is from September 14th. This is after the hurricane had impacted. So here it was still believed to be Category 3. Here it was known to be a Category 1. As you can see, Myrtle Beach, 4 to 6 feet. Same as here. Wilmington, 7 to 11 feet. Higher than here. Even higher than the 8 to 10 feet for some regions. So now this means that the category of the hurricane was downgraded, but the storm surge was not. In fact, the Weather Channel goes as far as to say on Friday morning that a storm surge of 7 to 11 feet had been verified. So this is them saying this, verified at New Bern. Storm surge 7 to 11 feet. As you can see, this is another screenshot from this video from the Weather Channel, 2 a.m. Friday. And here we see exactly where the hurricane came ashore. This would be exactly where the storm surge was supposed to be highest, Wilmington. And so how is this possible? If storm surge is as a result of the waves due to the winds generated by a hurricane, and since the wind generated by a Category 1 hurricane are much weaker than those generated by a Category 3 hurricane, why have not the storm surge predictions been revised down at the same time that the category was? But instead it seems that the storm surge prediction was accurate, only the category of the hurricane was not. Now, if a storm surge is related to the wind generated by a hurricane, then a drop in the wind would necessarily lead to a proportional drop in the storm surge. But if the wind decreases in strength and the storm surge does not decrease in strength, this means that the two variables are not related. In other words, one does not influence the other. Thus, the storm surge in this case could not have been created by the hurricane force winds, but by something else. This suggests that this was in fact a tidal event covered up by a hurricane. As I have shown in Article 335 entitled Biological and Ecological Weapons in Use Against Us, the weather has been controlled worldwide for a very long time, and hurricanes can both be artificially created as well as steered through the use of electromagnetic waves. Hurricane Florence therefore seems to have been created and steered with the express purpose to cover up an exceptional high tide event. The fact that the tidal surge was accurately predicted whilst the hurricane category and therefore the wind generated by the hurricane was not, indicates that the strength of this hurricane was inflated from the beginning. If the tidal surge could be accurately predicted, it must have been possible to predict the strength of the hurricane more accurately as well, especially since it was artificially generated, even though the two events were only related by one being designed to cover up the other. Now, tidal events are not new. There have been several ocean recession events reported during 2017 and some this year. The first, which seemed to have occurred at the Uruguay and Brazil coastlines, could not have been associated with any storm. But it became clear that there was an attempt to cover up some of the occurrences after that with storms. So here's a photograph from the ocean recession event in Ponta del Este, Uruguay. As you can see, boats left sitting on the mud in the harbor. And this occurred on August 11th, 2017. The same, the ocean came back, but this extreme low tide had never happened before. And here, this is an empty beach due to the ocean receding from the Brazilian coast on August 12, 2017. No large storms or hurricane could be blamed for the phenomenon, as there were no storms or hurricanes anywhere near this coastline. This too was unprecedented. And you may look at Article 227 entitled Stellar Cores Affecting Earth and Possible Connection to Volcanic Eruptions. At about the same time the ocean was receding on the east coast of South America, there were huge waves crashing onto the Chilean coastline, indicating that both a naturally high and a naturally low tides were occurring on the planet at about the same time and were therefore most likely related. So these are the large waves crashing into the Chilean coastline. This was most likely due to an abnormal high tide event. This is another one. This was occurred in Santa Elena, Ecuador on January 3rd, 2018. And this occurred 6 days before a strong earthquake in Honduras. And this was along a line joining two tidal events. And so a strong earthquake occurred in Honduras on January 9th, 2018, which was initially reported to be a magnitude 7.8, but later it was downgraded to 7.6. And this, of course, suggested an association between tidal events and strong earthquakes. So for more details, you may look at Article 127 entitled Honduras 7.8 magnitude earthquake on January 9th and water recession. And here you see people walking out onto the sand in Tampa Bay, Florida on September 10th, 2017. The beach was left empty due to the ocean receding. A hurricane affecting the area passed overhead before the water started returning the next morning, showing that the ocean recession did not occur as a result of hurricane winds offshore. Also, these are supposed to bring in storm surges, but seems that the opposite occurred. And in addition, the water never returned until sometime after the hurricane had passed overhead. So this means that there is no connection between hurricanes and these ocean recession events. They simply used to cover them up. And you may look at Article 227 entitled Stellar Cores Affecting Earth and Possible Connection to Volcanic Eruptions. Hence, tidal events in the form of unnaturally low and unnaturally high tides have been observed, and it is clear that at least in one instance there seems to have been an effort to cover it up with a hurricane, this one in Tampa Bay, Florida. And as we know, hurricanes can be artificially generated and steered. Now, why would such a tidal event be covered up? It would be covered up because a tidal event like this can only be created by an object closely approaching the planet from outer space. A tide is produced by a tidal force, or a weak differential gravitational force, which can only be created by an object which generates a gravitational field closely approaching Earth. The moon creates Earth's normal tides, as I will illustrate with a diagram below. Abnormal tides, in other words, tides higher than normal moon-generated tides, can only be created by an object other than the moon approaching our planet. This object may then also cause strong earthquakes and induce volcanic eruptions as a result of its gravitational influence. And here we see how the moon creates the tide. It exerts a gravitational attraction on Earth's oceans, and the attraction is much stronger on the ocean right below the moon than the ocean somewhere else, and this causes a tidal bulge and therefore a tide. On the opposite side of the Earth, the moon's gravitational attraction, when it's in line with this region of the ocean, causes the Earth's gravitational attraction for the ocean to be opposed, and thus there is a bulge outwards as well. Thus, a tidal event as a result of an object approaching Earth is most likely in progress right now and is the cause of what is being termed storm surge. The storm surge is in fact a tidal surge due to an object in space. This tidal surge is likely to continue for the next couple of days as the object continues to influence the area with its gravitational field, which is most likely why Hurricane Florence has been made to move so slowly. This means that the object is not likely to move far from that one spot over the surface of the Earth. An object which is able to stay stationary over a region on a planet can only be a stellar core, as these objects have been observed to remain over one spot in the sun's corona for long periods of time, and stellar cores observed in the sky from Earth have also remained in the same position for extended periods of time. And here we see one of these stellar cores in the sun's corona. It is exerting a tidal force on the sun, and it then creates a vortex which connects it with the sun and through which it draws material from the sun. This is what this root-like connection is. This is most likely a newer arrival because it's still dark. Another one here has already gained an atmosphere from the solar corona by pulling in material. It's now emitting light from the solar corona. Now, this object was about half the size of Jupiter, so one of the smaller ones. Now here we see an object in Earth's skies, and this object was seen to be emitting red light and seems to be surrounded by diffuse cloud of material. It was seen in a European webcam. It was caught by GFP in March of 2018. The object did not move across the sky but remained in the same position for an extended period of time. Stellar cores are also often observed to stay stationary with respect to a point on the sun, as I showed below. So objects that stay stationary with respect to a point on our planet have to be stellar cores. On a stellar cores that do not obey the normal laws of gravity and are able to remain stationary with respect to a point on the planet, thus showing that it's made a connection with the planet. Any other object, any normal object, would go into orbit And even only geosynchronous satellites are supposed to be able to stay stationary with respect to a point on the surface of the Earth. All other objects will move because the Earth is, of course, rotating. And for more details, you may look at Article 243 entitled Earth Hosting at least 3 Planet X system objects. It is therefore likely that one of these objects has approached Earth at this time and is remaining close to the area where Hurricane Florence came ashore. Now here is Hurricane Florence's predicted path over the next few days. Over there and here we see that predicted path side by side with this next red radar station map, which may be used to energize it so that it doesn't dissipate, because usually a hurricane on land would dissipate very quickly, especially a Category 1, as well as steer it, because these will pull it towards each next red station, put up a signal, and that will energize the hurricane and pull it towards that station. And the next one, next one, next one. And there we are. It's steered inland. And of course it will create flooding, which may be a desired consequence by the powers that be. Now, in conclusion, Hurricane Florence most likely never reached the strength that it was reported to have from the time that it was artificially formed in the Atlantic. The hurricane was most likely steered so that its arrival coincided with the influence of an object in space close to the Earth, exerting a gravitational force on Earth's oceans, and thus creating a tidal event which impacted the east coast of the U.S., where Hurricane Florence came ashore. The object must be a stellar core and thus a member of the Planet X system of dead stars. And here are the references. This is Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X physicist. Thank you for watching.